Hi and welcome to this week's Wu Wei Wisdom Life Lessons teaching. It's great to be back with you all. Now, do you suffer from low self-esteem or poor self-confidence? Well, in this teaching, we're going to be digging deep to uncover the real root causes of self-esteem issues, which for many people extend right back into their childhood. You'll also discover what you need to do to start feeling more valuable, more lovable, and more confident in yourself. Okay, David, so what exactly is self-esteem in the Wu Wei Wisdom model?
It's a great question, and it's the first question I always ask my clients when they say, I'm suffering with low self-esteem. I say to them, what does that mean? And they look blank at me. Well, it's self-esteem. What are you describing? A feeling? Yes, it's a feeling. I've got no confidence. I've got no self-esteem. But surely you know that you create the feeling. Do I? Well, of course you do. Feelings of self-esteem don't float around the room and attack you. You are creating that feeling. You're giving it a label, low self-esteem, low confidence, because of a belief. So that's the first step in this journey, to find out where this comes from. Are you describing a feeling, an emotion, or are you describing a belief? So if you're describing a belief, no, I believe I have low self-esteem. What do you mean by low self-esteem? And that's the golden thread process.
So I guess the answer to that question would be, I doubt myself. I don't believe I'm good enough. I don't believe I can cope. I don't believe I'm lovable. All the things that we talk about on many of our teachings.
That's right. And they wouldn't probably go as quickly as you've gone to it, Alex, but you're absolutely right. If somebody's doing the golden thread for the first time, they would go down. And I loved your description when you said it's like following a breadcrumb trail. So when you're asking why, you're trying to get down. And Alex, because she knows the model, went right down. It's because I believe I'm not good enough. That would be normally the answer to that.
So what you're saying is, the client starts with the emotions.
Yes.
I have these uncomfortable, painful, physical feelings and emotions that I'm calling poor self-confidence, low self-esteem. The intermediate step, when you ask them, well, why? What are you thinking or believing? They may say something like, I'm never going to have a good relationship, or I'm never going to be good enough in my career, or I always make mistakes at this. So it's more about day-to-day issues that they're presented with, either in their family, in their relationships, in their career, with their friends, before we get down to the deep core belief, which is I'm not lovable, I can't cope, I have no value or worth.
That's exactly right. They'll give you something current, like I haven't got any friends. I'm on my own. I can't keep a partner. I can't be successful. I keep losing the jobs and things like that. So they'll give you a current kind of situation. And then you've got to say, well, why do you think you've got no friends? And you've got to keep on asking that why question. It's almost like you're following a line of self-discovery. You're trying to get to the root. And then, as you quite rightly said, Alex, it will normally end up in what we call the 3 lies. So think about whether you've ever said this to yourself. I'm not good enough. I can't cope. I'm unlovable, or I'm unworthy, or I don't deserve, all that type of thing. Those are the 3 lies. And the golden thread will take you down to the 3 lies, because now we're dealing with what I call the inner child. The subconscious part of your mind has almost been locked in an emotional prison from the age of something like 6 to 9. And that's where these issues that we're calling self-esteem come from. And I really want to expose this to you, because if this is something that's happening in your life, it's very debilitating. It will hold you back. And you can release this today. This can be released, because this is a belief. And this is only your belief. Nobody else believes this, only you. And you can change this today.
And so, David, even if we discover as adults that we are holding on to a belief that is doing us a disservice, putting ourselves down, criticizing ourselves, doubting ourselves, often, as you say, the inner child is involved. And that's then an indicator that these issues, this self-doubt, this lack of self-worth, extend right back to our childhood years.
That's right. You have to go back to what the Taoists call the fountainhead, and I call the first domino. You have to go back to the real root, because if you don't, if suddenly, say, you say, well, I've got no friends, and suddenly you've got friends, then you would find something else that's not good enough. You would find you're always wanting to prove the negative. So if one of your core beliefs is, I'm not good enough, you're always looking, I think you use the modern word, confirmation bias. You're always looking for something to confirm that bias. I call it a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you prophesize you're not good enough, you can't go against your own prophecy. You can't suddenly become good enough. You have to find things. So you discard all the good things as in your life. This always amazes me with my clients, how they just throw away all the good things they've achieved and focus on one or two really bad things to prove a negative, to prove their self-fulfilling prophecy. That's something to remember. When you've got the three lies, you cannot be successful. When you believe, I'm not good enough, I can't cope, I'm unlovable, it is impossible for you to be successful, because you'll be going against your own belief system. You'll be making yourself look a liar. You can't suddenly think, well, I'm good enough, but I'm a multimillionaire, because that doesn't make sense. So you're always kind of reining yourself back in on those beliefs. But again, I'll say again, they're just beliefs. They're only your beliefs. Nobody else believes it. You believe it. And that's the most important thing.
And so, David, would you say in your experience of working with clients, if the client who is suffering from low self-esteem or low confidence, is it often the case that they have been criticized as children or experienced some sort of trauma event as a child? Is there a kind of a strong causal link there?
Yes, as you know from previous teachings, I dislike being precise, because everyone is unique and your uniqueness is particular to you. But you're absolutely right, Alex. This normally goes down to childhood. This normally comes down to your relationships with people in authority, parents, grandparents, school teachers, pupils, your friends at school, people that you have authority. And something has happened, like criticism or not being able to please, or believing that the person doesn't love you, doesn't value you. And so this then, you say something that I call the vow. So let me give you, for instance, if you're living in a household where your mother or father is negative towards you, a lot of parents, not particularly so much now, but in the old days, when I was young, thought that the best way to encourage a child is to always criticize them. Never say, well done. So if you came home from school and got 8 out of 10 on an exam, this type of parent would say, well, why didn't you get the other 2? This is why you're lazy. If you worked harder, you would have got the other 2. And they believe that encourages the child. But the child sees that as a negative, sees that as a criticism against themselves. So when they receive criticism, as you just described, the way they act, the way they look, things they do, that they're never happy, they can never please their parents, the child then says something very important. They say something that I call the vow, V-O-W. They say, it must be me. There's something wrong with me. There's something missing in me. And that is really the core, and that is so important. I can't emphasize in this work, because this Wu Wei Wisdom is spiritual work. This is so important, because when you question yourself, you are questioning or doubting your own value and worth. Now, I call that Shen, S-H-E-N, Shen. Once you question your own value and worth, you are then in the position for the rest of your life. You are looking externally for validation, approval, to be stroked, to be told that you're good enough. You are now giving your power away to others to give you that reassurance. Now it's never enough. And that is the low self-esteem. Because you believe yourself that I would rebrand low self-esteem to low or no value. That would be a clearer picture. I have no value. That's what you're saying when you say, I have no self-esteem. I doubt myself. I doubt my value. I don't have confidence in my value. That's what you're saying.
So this imprinting of self-doubt, what percentage of people do you think it's happened, it's come from childhood and then has been carried through their teenage years into their adult life, and I guess reinforced through the process of looking for the confirmation bias, looking for things to prove that they're not good enough, they're not valuable, they can't cope?
The people that I deal with, I would put it into 90%. I would put it that the problem that they're having in their lives now, whether it's low self-esteem, low confidence, anxiety, whatever it is, when you do the golden thread, it goes back to when they formed their beliefs right in their childhood. The most important period in my experience working with clients is the age between 6 and 9. Now, I'm not saying exactly, it could be 5, it could be 10, but 6 and 9 seems very relevant to me. And I think this is the time when you were a child, your emotions were fully developed, but your cognitive reasoning hadn't fully developed. So let me give you an example. During that time, 5, 6, 7, if your mother or father says, you're not good enough, you'll never make the grade, you're just a waste of time, you're just a waste of space, you never do anything right, the child then never questions, just believes. Accepts. That's right. Because for them, parents are almost like godlike figures. They're authority. So they never go, well, hang on a bit, Dad, so why do you say that? Could you give me some evidence to back that up? You haven't got the cognitive reasoning to say that to your father. And probably if you did, you get a slap around the head. So what you do, you kind of reverse back into yourself. I can't think of the right word. You
blame yourself.
You blame yourself. You become, well, it must be me. See, the vow. It must be me. There must be something wrong with me. This person who is biologically meant to love me and protect me and to look after me, my mother, my father, is now telling me that I'll never make anything of my life. I'm a complete waste of space. They must be right. I must be wrong. And there is the vow.
But David, there's an interesting thing you said there. We never, understandably, turn around to our parents and say, hold on a minute, can you explain?
That's right.
Or can you provide me with the evidence? Because this doesn't make sense to me. We never do that. And so the logical thing would be, okay, well, now we're grown up, now we're adults, we can look for the evidence, look for the explanation ourselves, but we don't do that because all the while what we are doing is looking for the evidence that reinforces the faulty belief.
Well said, Alex. That's it. And that's really what the model is. Let's go back and look at the evidence. We call it reparenting. That's why I like the analogy of the inner child. And you being, this is what I love. Imagine that part of your mind, if you want to call it your ego or your subconscious, or the devil that sits on your shoulder, or the negative part of your, whatever you want to call it. Try just thinking of it as an inner child, an innocent inner child. It's you. It's you when you were about 6, 7, 8. And he's just been told these situations. And the golden thread is going back. The self-inquiry is going back. And I would like you to think of yourself as now you're the spiritual parent. And the inner child is your spiritual child. And she's yours. It's stuck I've got this image, I say it on most videos, of a child huddled in the corner of a dark, dank, cold cellar, not knowing how to get out. Not knowing that. And when anybody ever comes towards them, the inner child quite rightly doesn't trust them, because everybody that they should have trusted has let them down. Now we have to get past that. And I think when I'm working with my clients, that's when I can help them, because I can almost reintroduce them to their inner child and open up the dialogue. I did it to someone yesterday. The guy said, I've never had that conversation with myself. He said, I do the opposite, David, than what you've just done. I shut him down. I push him away. I tell him he's stupid. And I said, do you realize, listen to what I'm doing. You're doing exactly what your parents did. You're not treating, you're not listening, you're shutting them down, you're pushing them away, you're not engaging. You're copying your parents. And that's what's got to change. You've got to open up that conversation. No wonder the child has got no self-esteem. He's been told, you've got no self-esteem. And the people that she trusts and listens to are not telling them any different. And that's why it's down to you. And that's why this inner child work and golden thread and everything we're teaching is so vitally important, because you have to change that belief. And as you quite rightly said, what we do, we don't change it. We just we amplify it. We make it more real. And we bring it in as into our lives.
And so part of the process is recognizing the difference between, I guess, because we do need to look for the evidence. We do need to question that original faulty, the misunderstanding in our belief systems about our own value and our own worth. And we need, as adults, to be able to distinguish the difference between, I guess, what is the consequences of believing we're not valuable, we're not good enough, we can't cope. So if we believe we're not valuable, that we can't cope, then we will fail. We will do things wrong. We will hold ourselves back. We will self-sabotage. That's not the evidence that we're not good enough, we can't cope. That's the consequence of holding the belief. So we need to get really smart because our inner child will resist this inquiry, this questioning of the beliefs that it's holding so tightly onto, and it will throw up all what it believes is the proof that we're rubbish, we're good for nothings. And we need to be able to say, hold on a minute, that's because this has all happened because I have never believed I've had any value. I believed I don't deserve. I believed that I was going to fail, and so I did fail.
You're right, Alex. I can't say anything against that, because one of the qualities of the inner child, it doesn't like being wrong. Listen to your inner child. You know this. The inner child doesn't like to be wrong. So even if the inner child is holding on to a wrong belief, it doesn't want to admit that. So it will try and make the belief right. It will try and prove to you that even though it knows it's a wrong belief, it will try and prove to you, and you just explained it perfectly. For those of you who are a little bit confused, go back to listen to what Alex just said. It will show you the consequence of believing something is wrong with you. It will say, well, look, something is wrong with me because I didn't get to grammar school. I didn't pass my 11 plus. My first girlfriend dumped me. That's proof I'm not good enough. It's not proof you're not good enough at all. It's not even proof of anything. But this is what clients tell me. I tell you that gentleman yesterday that we broke through, and hopefully today he's having a good conversation with his inner child and listening to. This is what he said. He said, my mother never gave me any love. Yes, she fed me. Yes, she clothed me, but she never held me. There was never a time I can remember that my mother put me on her lap and put me in my arms and hugged me and said, I love you, son. Never, he said. And I said, what's your conclusion? And his conclusion is, well, if a biological mother can't do that to their child, there must be something wrong with the child. There you go. There's something wrong with me. And that was the basis of his core beliefs. There must be something missing in me. Then the next layer, I'm unlovable. Now the evidence. He can't hold down a good, solid relationship. Why? Because he's always questioning what his girlfriends and girl acquaintances are thinking and saying about him. And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because he said, my last partner left me because she was she told me, I'm so fed up of you questioning, do I love you? Do I love you today? Do I love you because I made this mistake? If you had a physical child, came to you, if it was your niece or your nephew, and tugged on your clothes and says, can I tell you something? My mum never holds me. My mum never takes me in her arms and reassures me and tells me that I'm wonderful and I'm great. She can't do that. She's never done that. Would you say to that niece and nephews of yours, well, that's your fault. You're not good enough. You're unlovable. I'm sorry to tell you, but you're unlovable. You'd think I was crazy. You wouldn't do that. But you do it to yourself. And this is what affects your self-esteem. How can you create confidence if you have this mindset going on all of the time, looking for evidence, looking for confirmation bias, fulfilling your prophecy that you're unlovable? And this is what causes this low self-esteem.
Thank you, David. And I will put links in the show notes to much more detailed teachings on the issues of self-doubt and the inner child reparenting work that is obviously essential to this process. We really hope that this teaching has given you some new insight on the origin of your self-esteem issues or self-confidence issues, and made you realize that it is possible to break free of any of this and truly, truly love and value yourself. We really hope you have enjoyed this teaching. Please do let us know and perhaps share it with someone else who you think may also benefit from it. David works every week with clients all over the world via Zoom video call. If you'd like to learn more about David's one-to-one consultations, please also check out the show notes. And finally, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We produce new teachings every week, and we would love to share your journey with you. Bye-bye.